benzadete lojana dharana shri mula Guru Mahamudra Siddhi Pala Om Namo Guru Bhajadete Lojana Dharana Shri Mula Guru Mahamudra Siddhi Pala Om Namo Guru Bhajadete Lojana Dharana Shri Mula Guru Mahamudra Siddhi Pala Om Namo Guru Bhajadete Lokyana Dharana Shri Mula Guru Mahamudra Siddhi Pala Om Namo Guru Bhajadete Lokyana Dharana Shri Mula Guru Mahamudra Siddhi Pala Om Namo Guru Bhajadete Lokyana Dharana Shri Mula Guru Mahamudra Siddhi Pala Okay. So 524, statement 24 of chapter 5. So statement 24, if you remember, this is the discussion on, this is a very crucial statement in the Gongchik, which is what is virtuous in the Vinaya is also virtuous in mantra. And therefore, what is non-virtuous in the Vinaya is also non-virtuous in mantra. Now, I think those of you who probably started practicing Dharma within the context of urban Dharma with me, then maybe this sounds like a no-brainer. But those of you who have maybe come to this from other places, from wilder, pastures, then, this is like, oh, really? Now, of course, even those who have come from wilder pastures, no one exactly says, oh, what is non-virtuous in Vinaya level becomes virtuous in secret mantra. But if you look at how often, in specific instances, then you begin to see, oh, they actually, whether they know it or not, whether they say it explicit or not, they are behaving that way. So, right? This is the bottom line. It's about behavior. It's about behavior. So what I mean by that is, again, maybe it's also like, I have not, really hung out with other Dharma contexts for a while now. But in the days when I was hanging out with other Dharma contexts and kind of a fly on the wall, not playing the role that I'm playing now, yeah, I see, like people, like when they have feast offering or Gana Chakra, And the circles I was around wasn't even really that wild. But nonetheless, like suddenly there are like, bottles of beer brought out and, platters of meat brought out. And it's like, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. Then, when you socialize, people also talk like that. As in, their speech indicates that fundamentally they seem to think that, oh, in Vajrayana, this is all fine and allowed. But these are causes of suffering. So what the Buddha taught on the Vinaya level as the cause of suffering remains a cause for suffering in the secret mantra level. But again, I want to emphasize, not like in a rigid way. I think there is a danger of thinking that, Gyoba Rinpoche was some kind of puritanical rigidity. I don't think at all that he was anything like that. And so it's also not a literal, like absolutely not. Because what is being prohibited goes deeper than the surface level of what's going on. So ultimately, in a way, Gyoba Rinpoche's understanding is not in contradiction to other lineages' understanding, actually. The usual nemesis, so to say, is like Sakya Pandita and his tradition. But I think if you really plumb the depths of what Sakya Pandita is saying, I think there's no contradiction. It's more that on the level of, while we need to talk about these things, while we need to articulate these things, while we need to learn about these things, Gyoba Rinpoche has a particular flavor to how. And his way, I'm totally in full, disclosure, I'm partial here. His way is really profound and really simple. Both simplicity and profundity is in his way. Yes, so even like, for example, the story of Captain Compassion, it's not when you really look into the subtleties, it's not so clear-cut. Like, he killed, and therefore he went to the hell realms. That's not the whole story. That often is the main story because it acts as a counterpoint to the more general prevailing view, which is, Captain Compassion was blameless. That seems to be the general view whenever that story is told. The captain who killed, right, the would-be murderer of the 500 passengers on this ship that he's captain for. So he's called Captain Compassion. So often the prevailing interpretation is he's blameless. Or he was blameless because he was one of the past lives of Buddha Shakyamuni. So often it's told in the sense that he was blameless because his compassion was so overwhelming that he, even acting in a way that looks contrary to what compassion looks like, in fact, he embodied the essence of compassion, hence his name, Captain Compassion. But in Gyoba Rinpoche's telling of this story, he problematizes this situation. So then, often in Drigong circles, when you want to emphasize that point, you tend to emphasize how Gyoba Rinpoche says, but actually he was born in the hell realms after making that decision. So that tends to be, right, the counterpoint to the prevailing view. But I want to say to you, remind you that it's not as clear-cut as that. There's something deeper going on. Because elsewhere, some of the early commentaries also say, but it's not. But we need to see clearly what is blameworthy and what is praiseworthy in that decision. And we need to see clearly how he was at least, Captain Compassion was at least, from the Gongchik commentary we learned, he was at least on the 6th Bodhisattva Bhumi when he made that decision. So it was by no means a, ordinary decision. This is a decision made by a 6th level Bodhisattva. First level Bodhisattva apparently has the power to be simultaneously present in 100 places. Yeah, I'm getting there because I think I'm simultaneously present in about 20 places. Thanks to Zoom, I'm getting closer to the first Bodhisattva Bhumi. This morning is, 21 places this morning. So apparently a Bodhisattva on the first level is able to be simultaneously present in 100 places. So 6th level Bodhisattva, it's something, So when Captain Compassion made that decision, it wasn't a mundane, confused decision either. But nonetheless, So we begin to see how karma is so subtle, so mysterious, even if you want to use the word, but not mysterious as in no rhyme or reason. Just like anything else, like scientists and that analyze, they are analyzing things that look mysterious to us, but they're analyzing the naturally how things work. In a way, Buddhists are also analyzing how things work. Or Buddha, we say, Buddhists have seen with absolute clarity about how things work, and so then taught us. But our ability to get it is limited by our obscurations. To what degree we will get it, what they are teaching, is limited by our relative levels of obscurations. So anyway, here, statement 24 of chapter 5, whatever is non-virtue on the foundational level, which is what Vinaya is, and within the category of Vinaya, there are varying degrees of vows that people take. So us lay people, very good if we can keep the 5 lay vows. Because these vows are basically what level of protection are we equipping ourselves with. So in that sense, a monk's and nun's vows is said to offer maximum security. Now, you could end up feeling that you are in a maximum security facility. It's so safe, that you are trapped. For sure, you can keep the vows so that you end up in prison. But that's not Buddha's purpose. That's not the Buddha's intention. So in terms of the Vinaya vows and the self-liberation vows, our attitude to that should not be, how few can I take? But rather, how many can I take to guide my life? In earlier Vajra statements, one or two before, right, it says, fundamentally, I think two Vajra statements back, what we all need to train, regardless of what level of vows we have or don't have, what we all need to train in is absolutely the same. Then it says in the context, in the commentary for that statement, it says, therefore, in the context of whether you are a monastic Vajrayana practitioner or you are a non-monastic Vajrayana practitioner, what you have to purify is absolutely the same. Where the difference is, for monastic Vajrayana practitioners, they have made a commitment to maintain not only the inner training, which we all are equally responsible for the inner training. For the monastic Vajrayana practitioners, they have also made the commitment to maintain the external aspects of that training. So, wearing certain things, not wearing most other things, eating at certain times, not eating at most other times. Cutting hair completely plain rather than adorning, rather than going to, hairdos that are $250 a session. Otherwise, the training is the same according to, of course, how can the training be different? Elsewhere it says, if the training is different, then Buddha Shakyamuni must, not like the monastics. Right? He made it so complicated, so difficult for them. So that should not be our understanding. This in statement 24, it basically the commentary quotes these what sometimes scholars call antinomian statements found in the tantras. Kind of shocking statements found in the tantras, like kill your father, kill your mother. You should kill living beings. You should tell lies. You should also steal. You should frequent other people's wives. And presumably husbands, if that's who you like. So you should kill living beings. You should tell lies. You should steal. You should frequent other people's spouses. Yeah. So these are the antinomian, right? The shocking. Like, what? Wait, really? But the commentary says, but these don't literally mean what they mean. Yeah. And so here, Sobish talks about this, sort of what is known as the hermeneutical tools, like how to interpret. Hermeneutics is the practice of interpreting scriptures. It's a Western term. And so how do you interpret scriptures, right? So if you look at the Sobish's notes, which if you have the physical book is page 493, so at the top of that page, so in some tantra it says, how could siddhis, how could attainments be possible for someone who has no alcohol? Moreover, the same also applies to gnosis. Like, oh wow, turns out that all the drunks in the bars, are all siddhas. They are all possessing accomplishments, And the ABC store is the holiest temples. ABC is in the US. This is where you buy alcohol. If that is literal, And moving on, the tantric adept, being a hero, should drink alcohol too to produce bodily radiance. Now, Choki Drakpa explains that such statements as cited above, quote, hide the message of the intentional statements, unquote. Hide the message of the intentional statements. In other words, these antinomian statements are hiding the real message. Dorje Sherab introduces at this point some well-known hermeneutical tools, some of which go far back in the history of Mahayana Buddhism. So he says, regarding the mantra teachings, for the most part, so regarding Vajrayana teachings, the great exalted Vajradhara has disordered the tantras. Meaning, he has taught the tantras deliberately in a disordered way. Has twisted the authoritative statements, meaning twisted what the Buddha has said, what he himself has said in the general teachings. General teachings: do not harm, do not kill, do not steal, do not deceive. So here in Secret Mantra, he has twisted that and has hidden the pith instructions. Moreover, concerning the 6 positions, the 6 positions are the 6 ways of interpreting Buddha's words. Moreover, concerning the 6 positions, he taught through intentional and non-literal expressions. From among the 4 ways, he explained mostly by utilizing the hidden meaning. From among the 4 hidden intentions, he taught mostly from hidden intention alluding to transformation, and he taught through symbolic mantra language. This is the hidden language. So these 4 this, 4 that, 6 that, these are different interpretive tools. So the point here is, Dorje Sherab says, Vajradhara has deliberately. Now, continuing, okay? Our commentators explain that in tantric texts, the incitement to steal, or the seeming incitement, the seeming encouragement to steal, is in fact an instruction to cultivate the resolve for awakening by all possible means. So stealing, by all possible means, you should cultivate bodhicitta. To tell lies means to teach by employing relative truth. In other words, to speak to people at the level where they are in order to guide them to seeing things as they are more and more clearly. To kill means to understand the constituents of the person to be not the self. So Rinjama says killing is taught to be killing the grasping at the 5 skandhas. The commentators furthermore explain the incitement to engage in sexual intercourse with others' wives as referring to the cultivation of the 4 immeasurables. The latter point is possibly a word play. Okay, we don't need to go into that. This is just explaining the etymology. Now, you say, okay, that's fine, if you say that. But then, why? Why? Why did the Buddha, why did Vajradhara, why did the Buddha in the Vajrayana context wants to twist things around? Why not just talk like how Buddha normally would talk, right? Are they deliberately setting traps? Is this some kind of entrapment? No. See, if the Buddhists want to be tricky and to do what we would call entrapment, not a good thing, then they will not say things that are so outrageously opposite. Yeah, they will not say, kill all beings, steal everything. They will say, when no one is looking, squish a few bugs because they are just troublesome. If they really want to deceive with negative intentions, of course they don't. That would be what they do. So in a way, when they say so outrageously, kill all beings, in fact, is to kind of shock us. What? Then you go seek instructions of the Vajra master. Yeah, you're supposed to get it. Like, no. This cannot be it. So, sublime gurus, instruct me on this. So the intention is not that Buddha spoke like this so that it will mislead the people without proper guidance, mislead them and cause them to go to the hell realms. That's not why. It's more, the point is, Tantra speak in such extreme terms, as a caricature, as a shock device, so that anyone who picks it up can go, no, this cannot be it. And then, if this person has the right conditions, has the positive karma, will go seek instructions on what does this really mean. So it assumes that, no one is going to go look at that and go, yeah, I'm going to go do that now. Unfortunately, in some rare cases, I think people go, yeah, I'm going to go do that now, But here, and then the other thing here is also to speak like that. It's also to distance those who are not ready, including for the practitioner. In a way, it's to distance the practitioner from people who are just a distraction from them. Now, this one is a little bit scary, right? It's sort of saying, if your neighbors accidentally snoop around and see that your Bible says, kill everyone, steal everything, sleep with everyone in the neighborhood, and they're like, let's not associate with these guys. There's a slight intention of that kind going on. Then they'll leave you alone. So there's a little bit of that going on. Yeah. But this is not an encouragement for you to go ruin the reputation of Buddhists in your community. This is in the context of India. Yeah. Yeah, so why, tantric texts talk like this? It's so that you will go, yeah, there's no way, I'm strangely attracted to the tantras, but it's also very clear from a glance of it, what it says cannot be literally what it's teaching. And so I'm going to seek connecting to a community, connecting to teachers, connecting to guidance, and then uncover what is really being said here. Make sense? Questions?
I have a question.
Sure. Hello, Larry.
Hi. These antinomian statements, they were not written by the Buddha.
Oh, no, by the Buddha.
Oh, they were.
Yeah, the tantras, you know.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we say, we accept that these are Buddha's words, okay?
Right. I think you touch on one possibility. It's like you're teaching somebody something, and you don't want them just to take it on faith.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to find for themselves. So if you get someone who resists, you can say, well, then do the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Go see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but here it's more like it's so outrageous, the statements.
yes, it causes a lot of dissonance and confusion.
Yes.
So,
and then if you have the right conditions, you will go seek instructions.
right.
Yes.
You're not just going to go blindly. Most people would not just go blindly follow the instructions. You're going to,
yes.
like you
Yes.
suggested, they're going to go, hey, wait a second. This is
Yeah.
contrary to the other thing. You're stopped short. It's like the paradox of the good teachings.
Yes.
And you're forced to really think about, is this proper or not? You have to go back and look and see and
Yes.
and decide
Yes.
for yourself.
And more here, the emphasis is, and you will go seek out teachers.
Right.
Which
It's like
is
teaching any technique. It's like someone has a bad habit, and you say, "Okay, try doing it this way," and they're either able or not. And then you go back and you say, "Okay, try the other way. Try the way that it is contrary, and see if it works for you."
Yeah, no, in this case, it's like, don't try the contrary. It's deliberately stating it in so outrageous. Yeah, in one tantra, it doesn't just say, you know, for example, you know, it says, here it says, you know, kill your father, kill your mother. It's like, no, certainly no. Go try and see what happens, you know. It's to immediately say to you, this is not really what I'm saying. But are you curious? If you are curious, you have to go find a decoder. And the decoder is the lineage gurus. And with the enticement that the decoder can teach you to eventually be the decoder for others. So Dorje Sherab says, you know, only fools consider the letters of what the Buddha taught through illusion, through illusion, and those who are ignorant of elusive words do not understand the sense that has been taught, and saying the teaching is nothing but this, they take it to be a literal statement. Only fools would do that. But those who know don't necessarily know everything, but know enough to go, this is definitely not literal. So let me go find a decoder. Because then why do you need this decoder? Because when we actually get to the Vajrayana level of practice, I'm not talking about when we practice Vajrayana, which you and I are currently doing. I'm talking about when your level of maturity, your inner growth gets to the Vajrayana level. At that level, guidance of a guru becomes even more necessary. Right here, the kind of guidance that, the human gurus can give you actually is not so complicated. What I'm able to help you with, and others playing the role that I play, are able to help you with, is not so complicated. But when you actually get to the Vajrayana level already, then those guidance are very subtle. They say the subtlety is sort of like, between one dust mote, one atom of dust, and the next dust mote. So the gap between one dust mote and the next dust mote for underdeveloped and undeveloped beings, the gap between two dust motes is very small. Right? But for an advanced being, that distance between one dust mote and the next dust mote is the difference between here and the moon and even further. Yeah, that's because, on the gross level of a human, when we look at the distance between two dust motes, then we say that distance is no distance at all. In fact, I don't even see the dust motes. And then if I do see that gap, what do you mean it's big? It's not big. That's because you are standing from such a crude level as a human eyes seeing. But if you were a dust mote yourself, that subtle, that refined, then from that perspective, looking over to the other dust mote, it is indeed, the gap is even bigger than planet Earth and Moon. Now, next part, Sobich goes into discussing the specifics, one specific kind of issue, the issue of the use of alcohol in mantra practice. The second topic of the Vajra statement concerns the use of alcohol in mantra practice. According to Jigten Sumgon and his teacher Pamodrupa, ordinary alcohol is prohibited in both Vinaya and mantra alike. If, however, the adept is able to transform the potency, color, and aroma of alcohol through the means of mantra into the respective qualities of the nectar, the elixir of wisdom, then it is permitted even in the Vinaya. So this is a more subtle point. So not only should we understand that how if alcohol and its ordinary qualities, particularly its intoxicating quality, its quality to cloud our minds so that we are transported into a different reality, which is, I suppose, why people drink alcohol. We say, oh, makes me more relaxed. Oh, makes me more excited, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe, makes everybody else looks, more interesting. Yeah. So alcohol, if it has those qualities, then it is prohibited not only on the Vinaya level, but also on the Vajrayana level, because it clouds the mind. So that which clouds the mind, how can it, be a virtue? So equally non-virtuous. But here, but here, it is, the point here is, Jigten Sungkun Pamodrupa says, not only that, however, if you can say an alchemy has occurred, the properties of alcohol is changed through, in this case, Vajrayana technology, so to say, then instead of the intoxicating qualities, it has become, say, nutritious qualities, then of course it's not prohibited, even in the Vinaya, much less in Vajrayana. So this view is also not often repeated, but this is like a more subtle point. More, like I said earlier, more generally repeated, like the story of Captain Compassion, is how the mainstream narrative is Captain Compassion was completely blameless. The Drigong take is, no. We have to see the blameworthy part of committing violence and killing. Then often that becomes like the loudest in terms of, that is the Drigong view. Actually, the Drigong view is more complex than that. Likewise here, right? The general view is somehow in Vajrayana ritual, you can consume alcohol. And many current day Vajrayana rituals in certain communities, they bring out the beer and the wine and the alcohol, and people drink and people even get tipsy and have a good time. That's, sort of like how people think it's okay, Then the Jigten Sumgun Drigong view is, no, that's not okay. But then we tend to get stuck there and say, yeah, absolutely not okay. Here it says, no. That's also not the end of that understanding. There's something more subtle going on, which is this point. If, however, the adept is able to transform the potency, color, and aroma of alcohol through the means of mantra, through the technology of mantra, into the respective qualities of the elixir of wisdom, then it is permitted, even from a Vinaya perspective. Our commentators make clear, however, that the transformation should be observable. This is the important and the difficult part. Not just symbolically transforming, but that transformation actually has to be observable. You cannot say, Ram Yam Kam Om Ah Hong, it has been blessed. Then your Scotch whiskey, glub, 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 glub. No, it says, no. When we say transformed, it has to be observable. So through the three syllables of ha, ho, hri, one transforms the color of the alcohol and it becomes milky. One transforms the aroma and taste and it becomes like salty water. One transforms the potency, and by merely drinking this nectar, one is enabled to realize the innate wisdom, remaining free of intoxication and drunkenness. Can you do that? So Jigten Sumgun says, if you cannot do that, Then during tantric rituals, do not use Scotch whiskey. Do not use beer. Do not use, tequila or mezcal. Rinzhen Chanchup explains more specifically that Hri is taking away the intoxicating capacity and says that by drinking it, it is healthful, like a good tea, and causes samadhi to develop even further. And that's why there are stories of the Mahasiddhas that go to the tavern, the bar, the local bar, and drink and drink and drink. Because they are able to transmute, to do alchemical transformation. Dorje Sherab continues, for instance, the great Brahman Saraha resorted to the alcohol of the skull cup, and if, as in his case, something like the arising of the realization of the mind itself, Mahamudra, occurs, that was taught as the pledge of mantra. That means that is in fact what he has to do. Yeah. If something similar to that occurs, how could it be prohibited in the Vinaya? It cannot. So it is great invertebrate permission. That means it's always been permitted. So this is also saying, okay, at the same time, don't become such a judgmental, like a tight, religious type, Baptist or, like, no, absolutely not possible. Okay, all of this, is talking about, last time I pointed out, this is specifically talking about in the context of your Vajrayana practice. So then it even warns, in the context of Vajrayana practice, if you misuse alcohol, if you misuse beer, it will lead to the hell realms, right? So I think on the practical level, my opinion, this is my opinion, what about you say, oh, I have a drink, over dinner? I don't think that will bring you to the hell realm. But at the same time, don't think that that there is no fault involved there, because it's some kind of dependency. So for that matter, coffee can become that, tea can become that, become a form of dependency. To that degree, it's a fault. But it's not the fault of going to the hell realms. The going to the hell realms fault is Vajrayana, in the context of Vajrayana practice. So I said, when so much control, and you can say unnatural control. Yes, of course it's unnatural, because you are trying to transcend the normal. So like people say, monks and nuns, celibacy, all that, it's so unnatural. So it produces, these demented perverts, like all these stories about religious people taking advantage of others sexually and all that. You're like, of course, because they are practicing celibacy, it's unnatural. No, Buddha knows it's unnatural. And so for the training of monks and nuns, Buddha also gave very practical things to separate them from being exposed to dangers and temptations. Because they are working on something that is biologically unnatural. But you are going to transcend this. Now, when it enters the Vajrayana, you are deliberately putting yourself back in. You are still keeping your quote-unquote unnatural training, but you are now putting yourself in a context where you're exposed to the temptations. So at that point, you have to tread very carefully. And it is in that context, if you take alcohol, all hell might break loose. Yeah? You understand what I'm saying? Because you have created such a pressure cooker environment for good reasons. That normally, right, one sip of beer or scotch is not going to make you go, do all kinds of crazy things. But because you have been in such a pressure cooker environment, if you do it, it could lead to very severe consequences. I think that's what it's talking about. Questions, comments? Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
When we took the retreat in Guatemala,
Yes.
I remember that you said that we could use the pills, the blessed pills,
Yes, blessing pills.
the blessing pills in we can put into a bottle of alcohol
Yes.
and then use with the Kapala.
Yes.
And I did that, but in this context, I have to stop to do that.
No, this is different. This is different. Again, here is really talking about the kind of drinking glub, glub, glub,
Okay.
There, even, right, in that case, right, it's like, right, what we do in that kapala, we pinch, right,
Uh-huh.
a drop, and then we taste.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very different. Here is talking about, and again, depends on what kind of Vajrayana community you hang out with. Yeah, it's more than a drop, I can tell you, like Shambhala, and the more wild types, like, okay, cases of beer and, bottles of, it's like, okay. And like in Bhutan, people really like to drink, So when we went to Eastern Bhutan this last time, with Rinpoche, me, and then this one monk, Western monk, Ngedern, and we were in Eastern Bhutan, like these are all traditional Buddhists, but they never stopped trying to give the local beer to Rinpoche, to me, to the other monk. That's their culture, So it seems like there are even monks there or lamas, and definitely those who don't have monks' vows, this ngakpa types, they drink, It's like, well, and it's like, it's just funny, like especially like with Rinpoche, clearly is a monk, and but they're like, no, have some, It's like Rinpoche is like, no. In the end, I think Rinpoche had to like, dip, but he didn't even taste. He dipped and then he flicked, like, okay, I offer it to the deities, and then he just left it there. So there's a story in the Chinese Buddhist tradition. There was this kind of Mahasiddha figure. Kind of do things that, from the outside view is like something really strange, But he was dressed as a monk, but very sloppily dressed as a monk, Often seen kind of a little tipsy, a little kind of drunk, So apparently every day when, for his lunch, he eats 2 pigeons. So he has a cook, that cooks pigeons for him. This is early part of Chinese Buddhism where vegetarianism is not universally observed in the monastic system. Now in Chinese Buddhism, it's universally observed, vegetarianism. In Tibetan Buddhism, it's not universally, it's personal choice. In Theravada, also not universal, personal choice. But in East Asia, China, Korea, and Vietnam, monastics, it's universal. Actually, if you look at the monks and nuns' pratimoksha vows, in the 250 of the monks, there is no vegetarianism is not one of them. So it's personal choice. But in Chinese Buddhism, Korean, and Vietnamese, it's become universal. In fact, it's the marker, one of the key markers of a monastic life is to practice vegetarian. So anyway, this story comes from early period in Chinese Buddhism where it's not universal yet. So in that sense, it's not so shocking that this monk, for his lunch, he has 2 pigeons. So his cook, one day thought, So even though, right, at that time it's not universal yet, clearly there's a feeling of like those who do eat, they're not so serious. Those who are not vegetarians, they're not so serious. So this cook, after a while, thought, he's just, one of those nobodies, So he started to steal the lunch from the monk. So he started to steal, the food. One day, when he brought this lunch to the monk ate. Then the monk said, "Hey, have you been stealing from me?" And this cook said, "No." It's like, what do you mean? It's like, he said, "Well, for example, today, there's a wing missing." And the cook said, no, it's all there. And the monk said, "No, there's a wing missing." And the cook said, "Well, you have no evidence, So presumably, maybe it cooked, the style of cooking cooked until everything is soft, the monk like ate everything. So not even bones, So the cook said, "Well, you have no proof, how can you accuse me of things like that?" And then this Mahasiddha monk, he said, "No proof? I'll show you." And it said that he opened his mouth and 2 pigeons flew out of his mouth. One flew away the second one immediately fell on the ground because it's missing one wing. So this story is often told in Chinese Buddhism to say, you know, if you don't have power, that kind of power, then don't talk about, oh, I'm eating meat because it's part of my training, part of my spiritual training. Because again, in Vajrayana, you know. But interestingly, in our sources, there's not so much concern focused on meat eating than on alcohol. These early commentaries, because I think in part in Tibet, the conditions of Tibet also, vegetables not available. But even when they ate meat, they did not eat meat the way we are eating meat today. It's for the most part subsistence for basic, like very crude, you know, for really sustenance more than like enjoyment and, you know, all of that. So we should also contextualize this. But the point is, yeah, there are stories like that, you know. So here in this, back to the alcohol point, 496, you know, Jigten Simgun, he says his answer to some people, they say, you know, well, even though you cannot transform the alcohol, but because it is a Vajrayana ritual, and if you have like very pure perception, it's okay to drink the alcohol. Then Jigten Simgun's response, he says, actually, even in Vajrayana, it is said that the alcohol, even the alcohol itself, is to represent something else. And what is the something else? The 5 liquids. The 5 soft things. What are the 5 liquids? Urine, brain, semen, menstrual blood, and excrement. So he said, you know, oh, you insist on drinking the nectar? Well, let's put a test. Shake around your alcohol with some excrement. If you can maintain pure vision and glub, 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 then go ahead. I said, you say pure vision? Okay, let's see how pure it can be. So mix, you know, excrement and alcohol. You don't even need to mix same amount, you know. Even, right? Even like enough excrement that is hiding under your toenail, if you flick it into the alcohol and shake it up, see who will drink, you know, among your guests. Oh. Jigten Simgun says, that is the level of your pure perception. So don't use pure perception to get yourself in trouble. Because it's so easy to say, oh, I have pure perception, so I can do this, no problem. In another context, I've talked about this, you know, like some of these recent scandals with teachers. And the scandals sometimes are so bad, like, you know, they are being brought to court, criminal court, and then they might get into jail, you know, get into prison. But you have their defenders saying, you know, oh, no, the master did it, you know, for the benefit of students, and they are like the Mahasiddhas, you know, everything. Then I said, okay, for me, then, the true test of this Mahasiddha is, can this Mahasiddha go to prison and not be affected? Obviously not, because they are spending a lot of money paying defendants. to keep their Lama from out of jail, out of prison. If the Lama is a real Mahasiddha, go to prison. There are lots of sentient beings suffering in there. Go liberate beings there. If you have achieved real pure vision, go. In fact, this is a great fulfillment of your bodhisattva vow. To go to where the most suffering is. Go prison. That's not the case, you know. Okay, good. .525 comes, at the end of, again, Sobish's notes. There's a lot more that you can read yourself. 525, just briefly, I will just introduce it. The result of purifying the mental afflictions is sugatahood, meaning Buddhahood. And this is in response to those statements when people say the afflictive emotions are the Buddha family. And again, generally we have seen this. They say the 5 Buddha families, and each of the 5 Buddha families is associated with each of the 5 afflictive emotions, the 5 kleshas. Right? So like Amitabha's family is related to desire. Akshobhya related to aversion. Vairochana related to ignorance. Yeah. So on and so forth. 5 Buddha families, 5 afflictive emotions. So some people say they are the same. But here, Kyopa Rinpoche, to conclude this section about virtue and non-virtue, he says, how does Buddhahood come about? They come about by purifying, by clearing the mental afflictions. So here again, this English word, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with purifying because it seems like it's saying, go scrub mental afflictions. No, not scrub mental afflictions. Dispel mental afflictions. So maybe you can say, if you want to use the analogy of scrubbing, what are you scrubbing? You're scrubbing Buddha nature. When you're scrubbing Buddha nature, you're not cleaning Buddha nature. You're cleaning Buddha nature off that which is not Buddha nature. Right? I mean, of course, as just the matter of language, we say, I'm going to go wash. I'm going to go clean this pad. But what we're cleaning is, what we are getting rid of is the dirt that is not part of this. This itself is always clean. Yeah. So when we say purify, we're not purifying the stains. We're purifying this off stains. Yeah? So that's what we're doing. So here, the result of clearing the mental afflictions is Buddhahood, sugatahood. Okay, so you all have a good weekend. If you're in Asheville this Sunday, 10 o'clock, but they're talking about rain, so I don't know. If it's raining, then it's hard to be outside socially distanced. They have these little pavilions or sheds, but that's not socially distanced, so I should tell the organizers to make some announcement about, depending on the rain. Anyway, it's rather small, informal. So if you're in the Asheville area, 10 o'clock to 10 to 11:15, come gather there. I may or may not be there because this afternoon I take my second vaccine, and sometimes there is side effects in second. First one, usually no side effects, but the second one might give you flu-like symptoms. So I told Nathan, and Joseph, who was organizing this, I said, don't count on me. I may or may not be there. So anyway, yeah, thank you so much. I'll see you all. Now we do the bodhicitta dedication. Chanju sem chorim puji ma ge ba nam ge gyuji ge ba nyam pa me pa yang gong ne gong du bel war sho. Tata.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Adiós.
Gracias.
Hasta.
Hasta el
Buenos días,
lunes.
buenas noches.
Hasta el lunes.